We've been in communication, all of us, in various ways, in various settings, probably with most on this call. If you look at the collective of Bishop Bruce, Canon McCarthy, Canon Sartorius, Provost Alton, and others who have been calling and reaching out, we've been hearing from you, but to see you is a joy passing understanding. And we're so grateful for the ministries you're doing, for the flexibility and creativity you're manifesting, for the love and the confidence and the power of resurrection that you are living into. So it is a selfish pleasure for us to see you. The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Gracious and loving God, in this tapestry of giftedness, this manifestation of the community of our diocese, we see all that is possible, even amid our anxiety. We give you thanks for the work that is being done. We give you thanks for inspiring us at all times to be confident in the saving power of the gospel, regardless of the earthly concerns that plague us. And we especially invite your blessing on our Associate Chancellor, Jeff Baker, and for his law students at Pepperdine, who have learned as much as there is to learn about the CARE Acts and who then present their wisdom to us. We thank you for the ground that has been plowed at the church pension group by Bishop Bruce, who has inside knowledge and is getting us to the front of the line. We thank you for the way Canon McCarthy has driven us to put the economic and fiscal concerns of our community first this week, so that we can serve the people of God through the leaders of our churches. Bless us all, enliven us during this conversation, and send us forth confident that we will defeat this enemy. We pray in the name anticipatorily of the risen Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bishop. So I'd like to introduce y'all to Jeff Baker, who is one of our vice chancellors. Jeff is an experienced attorney. He's a law professor at Pepperdine, and he runs a clinic there. His work has been in nonprofits, NGOs, and churches. That's his particular area of focus. And he and his family are members of St. Aidan's in Malibu. In addition to all that, Jeff played a really key role in handling a lot of the post-disaster legal issues after the Woolsey fire. If you remember that fire, which started in Simi and burned right through down to Malibu. So Jeff has some real experience in helping our Episcopal churches in challenging times. So we're very grateful to have Jeff's wisdom and leadership, and I'll let him take it from here.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Happy to be here. I'm in a steep learning curve on a lot of this stuff, just like everybody else is. Our treasurer, Andy Tomat, is on my screen, maybe buried down in yours, but we're having a lot of conversations together about some of these things as well with banks. So I hope that we can have some helpful discussions. I want to give you a roadmap about where I'm going. I'm going to do my best to anticipate questions that we have gotten regularly and that I expect that you will have. So hold on with your questions as I go, because I'm going to try to anticipate as many as I can, and then we will open it up for Q&A and back and forth and some troubleshooting. So what I'm going to address from the top are two loan programs that are wrapped into what I'm going to call the CARES Act. That's what Congress passed last week, and it creates some federal loans and grant programs that will be available to us and to you all. Then briefly, a little bit about payroll taxes, and then even more briefly about contributions. And then I know there may be some Episcopal Church internal programs that Bishop Bruce and others can sort of address, but that's where I'm going to go. And before I start, let me give you just a little bit of what I think will be some really basic questions from the top, so that you sort of know where we're going. These loans, there are going to be two programs that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to tell you now what my shorthand is so that you'll know what's coming. The first one I'm going to discuss, and the shorthand I'll use probably is payroll protection loan. Now that is technically called the Emergency Small Business Loan Program, but we're gonna, in shorthand, call it payroll protection, or I might slip into calling it 7A, but I'll try not to do that. For now, the first loan is Emergency Small Business Loan Program, and we might call it payroll protection. This is all in the memo that you should have gotten through via email too, and you can we can make sure you get it along the way. I'm just going to walk through that. The second loan program is called EIDL. That's Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I'm going to talk about that one second. EIDL, Economic Injury Loan. But at the top, excuse me. Do you like my coughing protocol, even though we're on Zoom? I want to make sure that I'm modeling good behavior. Here is just a fundamental question. If your church or if your organization is separately incorporated, that means it has its own 501c3 status, that it is incorporated separately under the state of California, then you will be applying for these if you choose to, and if we're all on board, independently. You'll be doing that yourself. So for instance, that is almost every parish, but not mission churches. And I'm happy for bishops and others to correct me if I say anything wrong about the structure, but mission churches are going to be within the diocese. They're incorporated within the diocese. If you're a parish, or you are a school, or you're a nonprofit that is separately organized, you're going to do this on your own. And your economic record and your own plans and your own payroll and your own bookkeeping, you're going to have to handle within your existing corporate structure. Now, if you are a mission church, or if you are an entity that is under the diocesan corporate structure, that means if you are not separately incorporated, but you are part of the diocese, then the diocese is going to handle all of this business in a single effort to support mission churches, other entities that are within, like that would be mission churches, Camp Stevens, Iris, Prism, Seeds of Hope. I think that's probably the list. There might be some more. We're going to handle that within the diocese. So if you're a parish or a nonprofit that's separately, and when I say separately organized, there are a couple of things, but the number one thing you should know is if you are separately incorporated with the state of California, and if you are have your own 501c3 status, EINs are a clue. Other things are clues, but that's the fundamental question. And if you don't know if you are, then we can try to figure that out. So that's one fundamental question. But now I'm going to talk about what the programs are. We see your questions lining up in chat. We will get to those. We see them, but let me give you the orientation and the overview first before we dive into some of that stuff. So loan one, the payroll protection loan, is an expansion of the Small Business Administration. That doesn't really matter, but here's what it does. It is a loan from a participating bank, not the SBA directly, but from a bank, and that loan can cover payroll costs, and not from the period of February 15th through June 30th. So I think that's like 12 weeks. February 15th through June 30th, this can cover payroll. It can also cover costs related to payroll, like healthcare, family leave, insurance premiums. It can include employee salaries, commissions, and other things. It can also include payment on loans that we got during this period. and it can include rent and utilities and interest on other debt obligations that were incurred during this period. So the spirit, the policy of the loan is to keep employers from laying people off and to keep paying them what they're paid. So that is the purpose of the loan. So you apply for this loan, the maximum amount is $10 million, or there's a formula, and the formula it's going to be in a pretty basic application, and you'll be able to see what it is. Please don't go get a $10 million loan. That you probably don't have those sort of liabilities. But the spirit of the loan is this: don't lay people off and don't reduce their salaries or their compensation or their hourly stuff. And if you do, don't reduce it by more than 25%. So if you feel the need to reduce compensation, reduce people to 75% or higher because of what I'm about to tell you. The sort of rich, the rich liability of this loan program is this: if at the end of that period we have not laid anybody off and we have not reduced their compensation below 25%, and if we have used this money for those purposes, then that loan can be forgiven, which turns it into a grant. And that grant ends up being backed up by the U.S. government. So this is public money that starts as a loan, but if we are good with our accounting and good with our practices, turns around as a grant, which is frankly extraordinary in the United States. So this is backing up payroll and trying to keep people on the payroll. And that's going to be the purpose of it. Now, let me tell you how that's going to look. Now, the loan period, the banks have the ability to start taking applications on Friday, April 3rd. Some banks are already taking loans, loan applications tomorrow, but they're going to not start administering them until April 3rd. If you don't already have a bank who's participating, then you will go to the SBA, and the SBA will point you to a bank that is participating, and then that bank is going to work with you to get the loan. And you will apply. So far, the applications that we're seeing from the Treasury Department are super simple. So simple that they actually make me nervous, and I'm not sure that they're going to capture everything. So we have to be careful about it because this is cheap money. I think that the statute says that there are no fees, there are no personal guarantees, there's no demand for collateral. They're unsecured, basically, loans, and the interest rate will not exceed 4%, although we're actually hearing that the banks are like significantly lower than that. Depending on which loan you're getting, we think they're probably going to be in the 2-ish range, but your bank will help figure that out. They can't be more than 4%. And the payback on this loan is over a 10-year period, unless you get it forgiven. And then if you get it forgiven, then it's you don't have to pay it back. That's the point. So if you're going forward with it, you'll go through the SBA or your participating bank. You'll fill out the application that they give you to fill out, and then what I would strongly suggest is that you put this money in a separate bucket, a separate account, a separate accounting category, and keep it separate. Don't commingle it with your other funds. Even if that's just in your bookkeeping, make sure you keep it separate. You will also need to know how many employees that you've had, probably there are certain periods that you can choose, but I'm going to just give you a rule of thumb and say you need to have your employment records for the last 12 months handy and well documented so that you know who's on the books. Then if you get the money, you need to be extraordinarily careful to account for the way that you're distributing that money for these purposes, and these purposes only, so that when you turn around to try to apply for forgiveness, you can document it. And forgiveness will be reduced. This is a funny Christian conversation, isn't it? Forgiveness will be reduced if you lay people off or reduce compensation more than 25%, and it'll be reduced. Your forgiveness will be reduced by that amount of money. or if you use it for other stuff that's not eligible for forgiveness. So my strong suggestion is you should apply. I think there may be some other pastoral episcopal reasons for this, but from this lawyer's point of view, I think you should probably do this because it's a good deal, so long as you can account for it really, really well. That's going to be an important source of funds to help small businesses get through this. I should say there's one more caveat. This does not apply to compensation over $100,000. So if you're using it for any personnel who make over $100,000, you can only be forgiven for the amount up to $100,000. Then after that, it'll just be a loan that you have to finance. So that is loan number one. And now I'm talking about loan two. Completely separate program, completely different thing. The second loan program is something that exists already within the SBA, the Small Business Administration. It exists for disaster response, and it is called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. It is available for small businesses when there is a declared disaster. There is a declared disaster, presidentially declared disaster for every state in the union. It's COVID-19. You can, I list the California number for FEMA in the memo. And this is a loan that is not forgivable. It goes toward operating costs, and you have to show the amount of loan depends on how much you show that you lost in business for these purposes. So for us, this would probably be our contributions, tithing, pledges are down this much since then, since February 15th, and actually got to double check that date, but since the date of the declaration. And so we need a loan to cover those expenses during this period. And you can come back for more if you want, but this is not forgivable. The loan, the term that I heard from a nonprofit I was discussing this with yesterday, the rate was 2.75%. It was like a 40-year term. So it is cheap money, but it is still debt. So you can get it, but it's only theoretically for the economic injury disaster loan. So this is not intended to be for like capital projects or capital repairs, unless that is something that was in your budget that you now can't cover because your pledges or your donations or your tithing is down for whatever that might be useful for you. That's a more straightforward loan. What happened with, yes, this is being recorded. For our, sorry, I lost my train of thought. If you're applying for this economic injury disaster loan, you need to be able to show what you've lost by a percentage, and then you can get it. There is also available through this program an immediate $10,000 advance that you can get from this loan. So if you apply for it, you can apply, and if that can hit your bank account within 3 days of applying for it. That ends up being a grant of $10,000, and it will. This is the way they intersect. If you get the first loan and the advance from the second loan, the advance from the second loan goes toward your forgiveness of the first loan. So just hold that in mind. But Andy Tomat and I have both been talking to folks this week, and you cannot get these loans to cover the same stuff. So you can only get, I haven't been able to confirm this in the law yet, but everybody's expectation is you can get these loans, but only if you can get both loans, but only if they're covering separate things. So you need to be careful about not doubling up what you're going to get, because that will find you up with the government. Okay, I'm going to start, if it's okay with you, Melissa, I'm going to start looking at these chat questions sort of as they came in on this purpose, but maybe not everything. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Okay. Actually, at the top, I'm going back up. This is from Margaret, and I'm actually going to ask Bishop Taylor to talk about this. If you don't mind, Bishop, dialing back in. Here's the question. What kind of permission do we, and I assume that, do we need from a vestry or the diocese to submit an application for one of these loans? Because typically a parish church has to get diocesan approval from the bishop, standing committee, et cetera, to get a loan. But what is going to be your position on that for all of these? Bishop Taylor or Bishop Bruce? I think you're still muted, Bishop Taylor.
I haven't studied the matter, and I don't want to give an imprecise or incorrect answer, so I will state the general proposition that the diocese will do everything in its power to enable every application it can. Perhaps Michelle, Melissa, or Diane has a more precise answer.
Bishop Bruce, Melissa?
I mean, I would actually defer to Michelle on this one. My sense is, though, that especially with the timing and the window opening the way it's opening, that the diocese in this instance would just need to know what's happening for each congregation that's applying separately from the diocese, so that we can keep track of who's applied for what. But Michelle Rackison, are you on, and can you add more to that?
And before Michelle answers, if the question has to do with standing committee incorporation of the diocese approval, which generally is required with loans, we'll conduct email votes. We'll make them happen as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. The next, I'm just running down the list. The next question, oh, I'm sorry, was there more on that? I'll wait.
We're good.
Okay. I'm going to go on. So a question from Jane, nonprofit of parishes comes to the Episcopal Church. That's right. So I didn't actually mean that you had to point to your own 501c3 status, although you may need to have that in your hand, your IRS number, or whatever identifies you as tax exempt. Rather, what is going to matter is that you are independently incorporated, that you can show that you have an independent corporate life, that you can find your articles. An easy way to do this is to go to the website of the California Secretary of State. You can click on business entities, and you can run a business entity search. And then you can find your church, and you will find how you are. And usually parishes are incorporated in California with a pretty unwieldy name, usually like the vestry and the rector and the whatever of the church. They're not usually simple things, and they were done usually like years and years ago. Anyway, if you go to the California Secretary of State's website, and you go to business entities and do a business search, you ought to be able to find your own corporate stuff. I just want you to have that in mind, because I think it might come up about whether you're affiliated with another organization or not. And FEMA and the SBA will rightly be very, very concerned about people applying from multiple angles on the same entity. This happens in FEMA disaster. I've seen this happen in FEMA cases where renters in a house are applying, but they get preempted because someone else has already used that house's address. So they're not trying to, they don't want to duplicate households. And in this case, they don't want to duplicate corporations. So you need to be able to show that you're the only one applying for your entity. Okay. That is, those are big questions. Don't sweat EINs too much. I think that's a little bit of a less precise question. Let's see. The question about whether the SBA is doing this for religious organizations, they are. There's no limitation on that. And if you find that there is one, let me know, because I think I want to sue about it. But what I mean, that's not necessarily. I'm not making that recommendation today. I'm just saying I would have a beef if that's true. I'm not saying that the diocese is going to sue anybody. Sorry, that was sort of a joke. Y'all aren't laughing, but that was a joke. If you have anybody tell you can't do this because you're a religious organization, let me know, because I think that's not true. I think we've already discussed entry. Let's see. Okay, so here's a good question from Mrs. James. I hope that's Karen James, my friend. Does this only pertain to clergy, or can it be used to pay our preschool employees? It can be used to pay any employee. So if you get payroll protection loan, that is for everyone on your payroll. And in fact, if you let people go, then you won't get forgiven for what you got for them. So it's not just clergy, it's for everybody who's on your payroll. And payroll is like writ large, like it is full-time, part-time. There are provisions for seasonal workers. There are provisions for people who are on some kind of other status, not independent contractors. They got to do their own thing. Not self-employed people. They got to do their own thing. But if there's somebody on your payroll, then that is what it goes. The question is from Greg Brown. What is the window for forgiveness? The forgiveness, Lent is a good joke, but I'm just going to say February 15th to June 30th. That's the period that this covers. Forgiveness will happen after that, when you can document that you didn't let anybody go or reduce compensation during that period. Let's see, from Doug Sutter from my church. This is a question I'm not sure about. I might ask the bishops to weigh in, maybe Andy. The question is, if we are debt-free, does the diocese have preferred banks with whom we should work? I don't know the answer to that. I think that probably the answer is going to be, if you are a parish and you already bank with somebody where you have a relationship, that's probably the place where you should go first. Is that good, Bishop and Andy? Okay. So if you already have a bank, work with that bank. Like the diocese has a relationship with a bank, we're talking to that bank. But then if you don't have a bank who's participating, I'd say reach out to us, and we'll try to figure out how to go. I hope that's the right answer. I'm getting thumbs up from folks. Someone asked what the last 12 months is. I would say try to, if you can, document what you need to document back through February of 2019. They're actually probably going to measure this on a couple of ways, like how many employees you had a year ago, but then there seems to be a thing where you can compare to how many employees you had last quarter. And then it sort of shifts on seasonal, but I'm saying have 12 months of records out of an abundance of caution so you can answer all those questions, but it's probably going to be in the previous quarter, how many people did you employ and what was their rate of pay? Because they want to make sure that you're keeping people on the books and paying them what you were going to do. I don't, Doug also asked if we increased payroll. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think that it's going to be whatever you paid folks in the last quarter or year. That's going to be what you hook off of it, unless you can explain why what they don't want to have people do is get a whole bunch of raises to get this money. So you're going to have to show what you did pay and not go down, not what you paid and then go up. That's going to be sort of just a thing. Okay, does this apply to clergy housing allowance? I don't know the answer to that. I think it's kind of complicated, and I'm not going to try to help out with that tonight, except to say this. What I'm most confident in is that this would cover the part of what clergy gets that is cash payroll that looks like a revenue. I don't know how this is going to go toward FICA or toward housing allowance. I just don't know, and I don't want to hazard a thought. I think we need to think on that just a little bit more. Sorry to not satisfy. If you if you've had people on shorter term than that, that's okay. You don't have to show that you had them to be employed for a month. I think they just needed to be employed by February 15th. So it's not going to be about individuals. It's going to be about the total workforce that you have. With school teachers on contracts that end in June, is this considered a layoff? I don't think so. I think you might just have to document that. I think you just might have to do a good job of demonstrating what you're doing, but you won't show that you laid them off because of this. You're going to say that was just part of your regular personnel policies. On the EIDL loan, someone asked that Episcopal Relief Fund said that we will not qualify for an EIDL. That's the second loan. That's the economic injury loan, unless you're working with local emergency management system. That's usually how it works. Usually people have to go through FEMA and then get pushed over to the SBA and then come back and bounce and forth. But the SBA has an application for this directly on their page. So I think you can do it. And we're all in a disaster area. That's just how it usually works. Does this cover lost income from lost rental property? I would say yes for the EIDL loan, not for the payroll protection loan, but for the first one. That's what you would tell the bank. We suffered an economic loss because of this, because we lost rental income. So I think that is very likely true. Someone says that they applied for EIDL today. They didn't ask what losses they had, but they got the $10,000 grant. You have to apply separately for the grant and the other thing. So I don't know that you actually applied for the loan, but maybe you did. In the client in the nonprofit I know, they didn't apply for a specific amount. They had to show how much they had lost and then wait for a return. And in that particular case, it was someone who said that they had an economic loss so far and a projected loss during this period of $300,000, and now they're waiting to see if they get it. So some of that is going to be just wrapped up in the application. If you're a mission congregation, what is the process of application? That's from Paul. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name. From Paul, Pat. I'm sorry. The missions will not apply directly. The diocese is going to apply, and then we'll work with missions to make sure that they're covered. But now here's what we do need, and Michelle Rakusin and Andy Tomat, I think, are going to be reaching out to all the mission congregations, if we haven't yet, to get all the information that we need from you. And that will be who you hire, what your personnel, your pay rate, all of that, so that we can build that into our big diocesan application and send that off. So a mission congregation doesn't need to do anything right now on their own except answer questions from Andy, the treasurer, and from the CFO. A mission church will be able to get relief under both loans, but we're just going to apply through the diocese, not on your own. Let's see. Some people say that if they have a nonprofit on it, Jane Gould asked if you have a tenant nonprofit who's using your address, that could potentially get complicated. This is why you need to be able to show that you're separate entities and be able to document that very, very clearly, that you're separate entities even if you share an address, just so the SBA and the banks don't get concerned about it. But it might flag something. You probably will have to explain it in my experience. Here's a question about parish schools. If a parish and a school are incorporated as one entity, that will be one application. And you'll have to count all the employees in the school, all the employees in the parish. If they're separately incorporated, you should do them separately. But if a school is part of a parish and isn't separately organized, then the parish should do it on behalf of both.
Jeff, can we pause for just a second?
Sure.
I just want to say that Michelle had something to add.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So a couple of things, and I apologize, just as you were talking, my gardener was blowing right behind me and I had a hard time. I couldn't have talked to you. So with respect to the mission applications, Claire will be sending out something tomorrow as soon as we hear from Citizens Bank, which is the diocesan bank, what the format is for the submission of the payroll information. So tomorrow, all missions should expect something from Claire, and then that will be returned to me. And we'll envelop that in our application that we're hoping to file on Friday. And then with respect to the other question about the approval process for the loans, you obviously have to have your vestry or bishop's committee approve these, which can be done by email vote. But I would think, and this is just my thought, subject to correction by the powers that are smarter than I am, with respect to getting approval through the standing committee and the diocese, the correction of the diocese, if we just get the information from the parishes, how much you've applied for and your name, and that it was approved by the vestry on blank day, I think we can do blanket approvals via email so that you can get an answer immediately. You know, because time is of the essence, because I do understand that there's only so much money available. And even though it's a big pot of money, there's a lot of people who are going to apply for it. So we're going to want all of our people to get their applications in as soon as possible.
Thanks, Michelle. Also, the payroll loans, Bishop Taylor just posted this in the chat, but Bishop Taylor, Bishop Bruce and I were just texting about this. And yes, because they're forgivable, we can give a blanket approval for that. We just need to know that you have applied for that. So give us a copy of your application, but that's fine. One moment.
So what we're saying, let me just be clear on what we're saying about the payroll one, is that we just need to know, they don't have to wait for us to reply, correct?
Correct. They just need to let us know. CC us on your application like that.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Jeff, take it away.
So I was looking ahead at a couple of questions. We had a question about people who had to close down their preschool, but they kept people on the payroll. I would say that if you let anybody go, you need to get them back. Go ahead and keep them on the payroll and pay them because that will help us get this and keep it forgivable. Remember, being forgiven of the loan is not automatic. It's going to require some work. So make sure that you're not spending this on anything else, and make sure that you're keeping very, very, very close records. A few questions have come in about how to reckon what the cost was. I mean, about what your previous compensation was, and if you had to give people raises, but it may not be reflected in a previous quarter. I think you're just going to need to explain that. You're going to show what your current compensation is or what it ordinarily would be, and that's what you're going to ask for. There's a formula on this that I have in the memo that you can see. I don't want to read it to you, but it's in the memo that sets up what the criteria are. You can look at that and figure out what your rate of compensation is for those employees. But don't worry about AB5 and that kind of stuff. You'll just have to explain that. The banks will know what you're talking about and you'll get there. I saw a question about whether this doesn't cover independent contractors. What I meant to say is it does cover independent contractors, but they have to do it themselves. So if you have hired an independent contractor, that does not count toward your loan. This is only for employees. So if you have hired an independent contractor, it's up to them to get their own paycheck protection, not for you. I see a question about whether this is subject to payroll and income taxes. Yes, it is. So if you are paying people under this loan, you still have to pay their payroll taxes. You still have to pay everything that you did. Now, there's a bit of a trick to that, because if you don't get one of these loans, now a big asterisk here, so let's not be confused. If you don't get one of these loans for payroll protection, you can defer up to 50% of your payroll taxes during this period, which can give you more cash on hand. So if you don't want to go into debt and you think you can string it along and get there in your current situation, but you want to pay less, you can defer up to 50% of your payroll taxes. on your employees. But then you have to pay it later. You can just defer it, and there's a formula for that. It'll either be by the end of 2021, or for the taxes that are deferred, it's going to be the end of 2022. So if you want to, if that gives you enough breathing room, then that's something that you might want to consider. But you can't do that if you get a loan, because the loan covers that. Okay. Let's see. I saw somebody say all FDIC insured banks are eligible to participate. That's true, but not all of them are. And some banks are only doing it for existing customers. Some people are doing it for all customers. So you really need to check with your bank about where you go. That's important though. If you have a relationship, you should do it. Let's see. Someone said that the Episcopal Credit Union is doing it. So I didn't know that firsthand, but I think Kelly Grace said that, and so or asked about it, and so somebody said that they were, and that's a possibility. I haven't checked in with that. I'm going to look to Andy to see, or Bishop Bruce to see if that's, or Michelle, if that's something that you've heard. You can just nod. Is Episcopal Credit Union doing this? Okay, yeah, Michelle says pretty sure. So that's sort of where we are. Someone, Diane Askren says, what about ministry centers? I'm not sure what that means, but if it's under the diocese umbrella, corporate umbrella, like part of the diocese, then that's going to be within our diocesan application. But if you are separately incorporated, that will be up to you. Or if you're part of a parish, that will be part of the parish. So I think I got to the bottom of the list here. I hope that was clear. I know I'm a lawyer talking about banking, and that's messed up. So I don't know. Let's see. Leslie just asked, can you clarify about the utilities aspect? Yes. Both of these loans could be used to pay for utilities. They just can't both be used to pay for the same utilities. So if you were to get a payroll protection loan, you could use that for utilities, and that can be forgiven. So if you have to choose the payroll protection loan to pay utilities, not the other one, because you can't get that forgiven, but it does cover utilities. Okay, we were aiming for 6:30 at 6:17. I'm proud of that. Let me mention just a couple of other things so that you can have them on your mind. I mentioned the payroll tax deferral up to 50%. I'm not going to cover that again, but the CARES Act also lifts caps on tax deductibility of charitable contributions. So what this means in short is you can talk to your parishioners, your donors, and tell them that their tax advantages are better now. Now, from a stewardship point of view, I don't like to pitch tax deductibility and financial advantage as the reason that we give to church, but hey, why not? And so if you want to reach out to your folks, you can say, look, we need your money. We need donations. We need it now. And if you are inclined to increase what you have pledged, then the tax limits are lifted on that. So, and I'll go through this really quickly. For people who don't itemize their tax returns, they're usually capped at $300 for a charitable deduction. That cap is lifted for 2020 for this tax year. And then if you do itemize, you can go up higher into your income stream. If you have any corporate money, which isn't very common for churches, but if you do, the corporate deduction is lifted from 10% to 25%. So if you need to raise more money, you can tell people that they can get a bigger tax deduction based on contributions to the church under the new CARES Act. So those are some of the ways that you can get some cash and help weather the storm. Those are the 4 topics I wanted to cover. Let's see. Oh, Mary Pearson offers this good information about an IRA, which I didn't even cover. Let's see. Mary Chris says, is there a way to access the application for payroll loan tonight? You know what? Stand by because I have got a link for you. First off, I'm going to give you a link to my clinic website, which has a lot of helpful, which has a lot of helpful links. And this one specifically will get you to the payroll protection application that the Treasury Department is suggesting. But I want to put a caveat on this. Banks may have their own applications. This is the application that the Treasury Department suggests. This is the one I think that is like way too simple to be believable. So we'll see what the banks require. But to the question, there is no reason to delay right now. You should, I would say, get your, if you're inclined to do this, proceed. This is going to sound absurd. Congress only passed a budget for this of something like $360 billion. That is going to go fast. And when you think about the entire country. Oh, from the question of St. Michael Archangel, what about Sunday childcare workers who are ordinarily paid only for the time they work? That's a great question. These are people who are even like sort of less than part-time. The way that I read the statute, that's covered. So even if you have people who are on your books only for Sunday, but they are employed by you and you pay them, then you ought, and if you can demonstrate that you have done, that's good. Now there's an outside chance that some of those folks might be independent contractors, but let's not worry about that. Let's just assume that they're on your books and you can cover them for that purpose.
Jeff?
CC Schroeder. Oh, Melissa, I was
Sorry.
that Zoom question.
Yeah, just real quick. I want to make sure everyone saw Dan Valdez's message. The credit union is not yet approved as an SBA lender, but they will make referrals for their members. So if you're a credit union member and need a referral, give them a call. Thank you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, thank you for that. Oh, this is just a Zoom question. CC Schroeder, Melissa will get a link for this after Zoom processes it, and we'll be able to share it by email after the recording comes up. I teach online all the time. I'm learning all about Zoom. We're calling it Zoom School of Law. There are even t-shirts. Bishop Bruce. Almost.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that you also need to know. The church pension group, if you're a parish that does not have an endowment, that does not have some liquidity of cash, and it is tight for you, I mean, very tight for you, they can forgive 2 months worth of clergy pension fund assessments for clergy pension only, 2 months. But you need to email me with information tonight, tomorrow morning, the latest, because it's going to go on one letter from Bishop Taylor to CPG. That's one thing. And so, but you cannot have an endowment. You've got to prove that you're a hardship case, right? So send me your financial information and your request if you want to do that. That's number one. Number two, any congregation for up to 3 months can defer without penalty their clergy and lay pension fund assessments. Can delay their health care assessments. So that's medical trust. And if their property is covered by church insurance, so not Guide 1, church insurance, they can defer it up to 3 months without penalty, and you will not be cut off. Okay, does that make sense? If you have questions, you can send me an email.
Thank you, Bishop Bruce. I think Bishop Taylor has something he'd like to add.
2 small details, and then one more thank you. First of all, I hope you saw in the thread that Brother Valdez says the credit union will make referrals to anyone who needs one. You do not have to be a credit union member. Mary Christ, you are pretty close to being a class of one when it comes to Ministry Center. Call me tomorrow and we'll just figure out how to make sure we've got the information we need to have. And finally, I want to, many have worked hard to try to get us in the position to be able to be as helpful as we can to all of you. And I want to, in particular, single out our CFO, Michelle Rackison, who has worked long hours to bring us to this point and is hard at work as we speak on the diocesan application. And our treasurer, Andy Tomat, has been Jeff's absolutely wonderful, creative, and supportive partner in helping us get prepared. So on behalf of all of us, thanks to Michelle and Andy.
Amen.
Jeff, would you kindly talk about clergy as independent contractors, that last question from St. Michael's?
Honestly, I have to confess that I'm still in the learning curve here on this. So I might need some more senior hands to figure it out. Let's see. I want to read the question. I've always understood that clergy are not employees but independent contractors. That's why we have to cover both halves. The way that I understand this, and this is from our canon to the ordinary, you tried to explain it to me the other day, is that clergy get paid in three different components, or compensated in three basic components. There's like the cash payments, there's the salary, there's a housing allowance that comes from that, and then there is FICA or other taxes that one doesn't have to pay. You all probably know this far better than I am still learning about it. I do not think that affects, I'm quite sure that doesn't affect whether you are an employee or an independent contractor. If you are getting paid and you're getting benefits and you're getting a salary and you're under someone's control, in this case, the bishop or the vestry or other people who have governance over you as clergy, you're not an independent contractor. An independent contractor, for our purposes, is someone who, like for instance, we hire a guy to come to our house with his crew to clean our house once every 2 weeks, and we pay that person $150, but we don't tell him how to clean our house. That's an independent contractor. He's not our employee. If you have someone who is coming to work on your plumbing, that person is more like an independent contractor or vendor that you've hired. So clergy, to me, in this particular situation, are employees because you're connected, you're under the control and the supervision of other people, and you're getting paid a salary, even if it's limited and has the funky features of it. Now I'm going to look at bishops to make sure I'm not wrong, because that's the way that I read it. I know it's more complicated than this, but that's my expectation.
Michelle. Michelle.
Yes. So for federal income tax purposes, all clergy are considered employees. For paying the self-employment tax, you're considered in a different bucket, but you are considered employees for federal income tax purposes.
And I think the most conservative reading on this is that the payroll protection loan will cover the cash compensation that you get, not the other things. There's more lawyering and more accounting we'll have to do about housing allowance and other things, but I just want to say conservatively, that's what I think. Michelle, do you have another read on that?
Well, it seems to me that that the housing allowance is cash compensation. What you do with it is between you and the IRS when you report it on your tax return. And I would think that for purposes of actually filling out the application, you would go ahead and put it on. Worst case is they disallow it.
And does everyone see Valdez's note? Independent contractors can apply beginning a week after this first round of institutional business applications. Thank you, Dan.
And on that score, I imagine this is probably a pretty common question. Someone, St. Michael Archangel, asked about the organist being an independent contractor. That you need to probably make that decision. Probably, and I think this is actually probably true of a lot of churches. That person probably needs to apply on their own. I mean, they're under your supervision for liturgical purposes, but not probably for employment purposes. So I think that's going to be a different thing. You might want to think about that closely, though. All right, we were going to 6:30. It's 6:30. What do you think, Reverend Melissa?
I think we need to end here. I'm going to ask Bishop Bruce to say a prayer for us in closing, and then I'll ask everyone to leave the meeting except for our Spanish-speaking clergy and lay leaders. Bishop Bruce, I'm trying to, there you go.
The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious and Holy One, we give you thanks for this time. We give you thanks for some clarity of insight into what all of this means. Lord, we know that this is still so much of a work in process. We ask you to guide and guard all of us as we continue to navigate this water. We give special thanks for Jeff and for all of those who have been working so diligently on our behalf. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, everybody. See you.
Y ahora vamos a continuar solamente en español.
So we're just going to let people leave, make their exit.
I'm going to get some water. I'll be right back.
Sure. There's Antonio. Good evening, Antonio. I just unmuted you.
Buenas noches.
Let's see, Juan and Arthur, Otto, Norma. Who else do we have?
The Collier's on.
And there's Carlos. Looks like we still have a lot of folks from the last meeting. I'm hoping that they will. Yeah, folks are still signing off. Okay. Let me go to my agenda. All right, Antonio, why don't you go ahead and do the welcome.
Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos y a todas. Esta es la segunda parte de una reunión que tuvimos hace un rato donde queremos compartir con ustedes el trabajo que ha estado haciendo la diócesis. Esto es como un seguimiento de la conversación que tuvimos ayer el martes con la obispa Bruce, donde nos dijo que la diócesis estaba revisando programas federales, ¿verdad? Donde todos podemos aplicar. Entonces, la idea de esta reunión hoy es escuchar de nuestro vicecanciller, Jeff, acerca de esos programas federales y también tener la oportunidad de que todos ustedes puedan hacer preguntas que puedan informarles, ¿verdad? Cómo aplicar estos programas. Así pues que con eso le voy a pedir a la obispa Bruce que por favor haga una oración.
Sí. El Señor sea con ustedes. Dios Todopoderoso, demos gracias por este tiempo, demos gracias por su ayuda en estos días. Guíanos, especialmente hoy noche, para escuchar y entender todo lo que va a pasar con esta oportunidad. Todo esto nos pedimos en el nombre de Jesucristo nuestro Señor. Amén.
Amén. Yo también voy a estar traduciendo en la reunión de hoy para Jeff y para Melissa también. So, Melissa, you like to make the introduction to Jeff?
There we go.
Listo.
So Jeff Baker is one of our vice chancellors. He's a law professor at Pepperdine.
Jeff Baker es uno de nuestros vicecancilleres de la diócesis y él da clases como profesor en la Universidad de Pepperdine.
He runs a clinic there, and his work has been with nonprofits, NGOs, and churches.
Y él tiene un proyecto ya que trabaja con estudiantes, donde la mayoría de su trabajo es con organizaciones sin fines de lucros y también con iglesias.
And he and his family are members of St. Aidan's in Malibu.
Él y su familia son miembros de la parroquia St. Aidan's en Malibu.
And most recently, Jeff has been very helpful in working with our congregations that were affected by the Woolsey fire, so handling a lot of the legal issues in light of that disaster. And so Jeff brings a lot of wisdom and experience to this kind of work, and we're grateful for him.
Y Jeff trae bastante experiencia, ¿verdad? Este trabajo en tiempos de emergencia y desastres, porque él trabajó con muchas iglesias que fueron afectadas durante los incendios que ocurrieron recientemente. Así pues que agradecemos bastante a Jeff que está trayendo toda su ayuda para nosotros.
And with that, I'll let Jeff and Antonio take it from here.
Vamos a escuchar de Jeff ahora.
Hola, buenas noches. Thank you, Antonio, for translating. I'm grateful. I have a little bit of Spanish, but not enough for this, so thank you.
Jeff va a decir todo en español y yo no tengo que traducir. Is that right? You're going to say everything in Spanish. I don't need to translate anything. Is that what?
Yes, well, thank you for this evening. I want to talk about a few programs that Congress just passed to help small businesses, which include nonprofits and churches.
Sí, Jeff quiere conversar con nosotros esta noche de un par de programas que el Congreso acaba de aprobar y que puede ayudar a organizaciones sin fines de lucros, incluyendo iglesias.
So I'm going to start with two loan programs that are different but are related that our churches might be willing to, might find useful.
Yo voy a comenzar con dos programas préstamos que hay que, aunque son relacionados, son diferentes y que nosotros como iglesia podemos considerar que son útiles también.
And I want to start with some basic ideas. The first basic idea is the difference between a parish and a mission while we're having these conversations.
Y él dice que una de las cosas que tenemos que estar bien claros, ¿verdad? Es que cuando conversemos, la conversación quizás es diferente cuando hablamos de parroquias que cuando hablamos de misiones. Y es importante que tengamos eso en cuenta.
So first, if a church is a mission, or if we're talking with nonprofits that are part of the diocese, then none of those churches need to make any applications on their own. The diocese will do it.
Si su parroquia es una misión o si usted está en una organización que es parte de la diócesis, no se tiene que preocupar de hacer la aplicación porque la diócesis va a hacer una aplicación completa para todas las misiones.
So for a mission, Michelle, who is our CFO, will reach out to missions or already has to get the information for one big loan application instead of individual applications.
Y para los que somos misiones, ¿verdad? Vamos a escuchar de la diócesis, quizás de Michelle o quizás de Claire, que nos van a mandar un email pidiéndonos toda la información que tenemos que proporcionar para completar la diócesis y todas las misiones también.
If a church is a parish, or if a nonprofit or other ministry is incorporated independently, it will need to make its own application for these loans.
Y si una parroquia no es una misión, sino que está incorporada de manera independiente ante el Estado, como parroquia o como organización sin fines de lucro, usted va a tener que hacer su aplicación separada e independiente de la diócesis.
So now I'll talk about two loans, and the first one, it's called a payroll protection loan. But I'll talk about it as loan number one, the payroll protection loan.
Jeff ahora va a hablar de dos préstamos. El primer préstamo del que vamos a hablar es un préstamo que se va a referir al préstamo como el préstamo para proteger nuestras nóminas. Y él también lo va a llamar la préstamo número 1, pero vamos a comenzar con ese.
Loan number 1 is called payroll protection, and its purpose is for employers to not lay off their employees and to not reduce their compensation.
Y el propósito de este préstamo es para ayudar a los empleadores e incentivarlos a que primero no despidan a sus empleados y segundo a que si los mantienen no reduzcan su sueldo durante este periodo de emergencia.
The loan comes from the federal government through a bank, and people in churches or organizations will apply for it to get money to cover payroll and benefits and other kinds of compensation.
Y el préstamo va a venir directamente de un banco aprobado por la Administración de Pequeños Negocios Federal, y las iglesias van a tener que aplicar directamente este préstamo, y este préstamo le va a permitir cubrir los salarios, los beneficios y otras cosas que vamos a hablar en un rato.
And some other things.
Y otras cosas.
And a few other things. And this covers a period from February 15th, 2020 to June 30th, 2020.
Y lo otro importante también es que el periodo que cubre es desde el 15 de febrero de este año, 2020, hasta el 30 de junio de 2020. Ese es el periodo que cubre este préstamo.
So a church will apply for a loan through the SBA, the Small Business Administration, or a participating bank. And they will have to, well, I'll stop there.
La iglesia que decida aplicar por este tipo de préstamo lo puede hacer quizá directamente con la oficina de la Administración de Pequeñas Empresas del gobierno federal, o también ellos pueden referirle a un banco donde usted hace la aplicación directamente con un banco.
The church will need to have records about how many employees it has had over the last year, or at least in the last quarter, and how much each of those employees was paid.
Y una de las cosas que tiene que mostrar la organización que aplica la iglesia es los salarios y el número de empleados que tenían durante el año pasado, o mínimo el último trimestre.
And the loan will be that number times 2.5, so it can be a big number, and it can go up to $10 million, but no one is getting a $10 billion loan.
Sí, y el préstamo generalmente va a ser, cuando calculen todos esos salarios y beneficios, lo vamos a multiplicar por 2.5, y esa va a ser la cantidad del préstamo, con un máximo de $10 millones, pero esperamos que ninguno de nosotros aquí nos metamos en una deuda de $10 millones.
No. But here is the great gift of this program. If a church keeps all of its employees and doesn't reduce their compensation, then the loan can be forgiven and converted into a grant, so that we don't have to pay the loan back.
Y el regalo de este tipo de préstamo, el préstamo número 1, es que si la iglesia, la organización no despide a los empleados y los mantiene por entonces se convierte en pensión o una beca institucional donde usted no va a tener que pagar el préstamo.
So the theory is this: if a church can document the number of employees and the number of and its amount of compensation that it has paid them, and that it keeps them on and doesn't reduce it more than 25%, then the loan can be forgiven.
Y el principio de este préstamo, ¿verdad? Es que si la organización o iglesia puede demostrar cuántos empleados tenía y cuántos le pagaba, incluyendo sus beneficios, y después puede demostrar, y también puede demostrar que no le redució el sueldo. Se puede reducir el sueldo, pero no más del 25%. Y si mantiene sus empleados y no reduce el sueldo por más del 25%, la posibilidad es que se le convierta en una subvención o una beca institucional y no tenga que pagarla.
And this loan can also be used for rent and utilities and some limited payment on other debts.
Y lo bueno de este préstamo también es que se puede utilizar también para pagar los servicios públicos, ¿verdad? Como electricidad, gas, teléfono, quizás un poquito el alquiler y otros gastos que pueden estar relacionados con el negocio.
And all of this information that I'm giving you is in a memo that Melissa and the diocese sent out that is also translated into Spanish.
Y toda esta información está en el memorándum que estaba anexo al email que recibimos la diócesis, que cuando usted se conecta con el enlace, el memo está allí en español.
I will talk about the second loan in a moment, but are there any questions now about this payroll protection loan number 1?
Y antes que comencemos a hablar del préstamo número 2, queremos preguntar si alguno de ustedes tiene alguna pregunta y le agradecemos si pueden poner su pregunta en el chat que es allá abajo, ¿verdad? En la parte baja de su pantalla puede haber una cajita que dice chat y si usted le da allí, escribe su pregunta y nosotros podemos responderla. So I'm inviting them to put a question in the chat box.
Yeah, and I can unmute them as soon as, if they want to speak it as well, because it's a smaller group.
Y si alguien quiere preguntar directamente, también lo puede hacer. Nosotros le quitamos el mute aquí. ¿Hay alguna pregunta de alguien?
Oh, I see this question from Daniel Valdez. Do you see it, Antonio? You can translate it as well.
Yes, so I don't know if there is a... so the question, la pregunta dice, ¿verdad? Que algunos clérigos, ¿verdad? Ya... I don't know what he means with deferred March compensation. Does it mean that they didn't pay them?
I don't know. Daniel, can you explain your question?
I'm going to find him. Hold on. For some reason, I cannot scroll between. Oh, there he is. Duh, right in front of me. And go.
Buenas tardes. Buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Sí, es que algunos clérigos han suspendido su compensación con la expectación que la van a poder recuperar más después. ¿Cómo deben de tratar ese asunto?
Then you want to say that in English?
There are some clergy who have already deferred their compensation. So I'm wondering how should those cases be handled where their compensation is not included in March payroll, or at least a portion of it?
My hope would be that you could go back and pay them, honestly. This is because you could get a loan to cover it. And the loan would, I'm sorry, Antonio, I'm going too fast. I'll try to say it more clearly. The question will be, you should try to go back and pay them again, or pay them what you owed them, because the loan can only be forgiven if you pay people at least 75% of their compensation.
Okay. So la pregunta de Dan, ¿verdad? Es que quizá algunos de nosotros, ¿verdad? No recibimos pago en marzo. Y entonces Dan pregunta, y este préstamo que la gente se le haya continuado pagando, ¿verdad? Entonces, la recomendación de Jeff es que si se no le ha pagado marzo, que busquen la forma de pagarle marzo, ¿verdad? Aunque sea atrasado, pero pagárselo, para que después le puedan perdonar la deuda de este préstamo, porque de otra forma no lo van a hacer.
But if you can't go back and make that payment, the loan can still cover payroll protection, can still cover that compensation. So if we got the loan, you could pay back that money at its rate, and then hope to get the loan forgiven. But I think that you should go ahead and apply for the loan and then pay that priest back, pay that clergy back. Didn't get paid.
Lo otro, so Jeff, let me understand that part too. So are you saying that even if they haven't paid them March, they could apply for the loan, receive the loan, pay them back March, and then maybe they will be forgiven.
Exactly right.
Okay,
Yes.
so lo que dice Jeff es que, porque quizá algunos de ustedes no tienen el dinero para pagar marzo, lo que él dice es que se puede aplicar igual por el préstamo, y cuando se recibe el préstamo, pagarle en marzo al empleado que no se le pagó, para así demostrar en el futuro que no hubo, que se le pagó durante todo el tiempo y no dejó de pagársele.
Daniel, is that good?
Yes, thank you.
Gracias.
I think I saw another question from someone else who raised their hand earlier.
Bishop Taylor.
Other questions?
¿Hay otras preguntas de alguien más con respecto a este préstamo?
Padre Limatu?
Lima, tú. Ajá.
Can you unmute him a
¿Tú tienes
little?
alguna pregunta para quitarle el mute?
Who? Sorry, who? Otto?
Lima, tú.
Oh,
Está levantando.
There you go.
Raising his hand. Sí, ya está listo.
Ok, según entendí, en caso de nosotros las misiones, no tenemos que aplicar para este tipo de préstamo. O sea que eso saldría directamente de la diócesis. ¿Es correcto?
So he's just confirming that mission churches don't have to submit the application because the application will come directly from the diocese.
but we will need
Yes.
information from them in order to make that application. And that information will be being requested tomorrow. And it's important that people respond very quickly.
So la respuesta es sí, ¿verdad? Que la diócesis va a hacer la aplicación en nombre de todas las misiones. Lo que Melissa acaba de expresar es que mañana vamos a recibir un email donde se nos pide la información que se necesita y que se pide que respondamos y entreguemos la información lo más antes posible para completar la aplicación. Pero depende de nosotros también mandar la información. Gracias, Lima. ¿Tiene otra pregunta, Lima, tú?
Bueno, es que nosotros tenemos 2 empleados, o teníamos 2 empleados, pero antes de que empezara a surgir el problema del COVID-19, por la situación económica de la iglesia, nosotros despedimos a estos 2 empleados. Una de las cosas es que no califican, o sea, no tienen papeles y estaban trabajando con papeles prestados los 2 y no creo que quieran hacerlo. O sea que no sé si esto aplique para reintegrarlos o definitivamente se quedan así.
¿Cuándo los despidió?
Mediados de febrero, si no estoy mal.
So Lima 2 is saying that, you know, when they saw that the economic situation was getting worse, they laid off 2 employees in mid-February. So there are 2 parts to his question. One is, will this allow them to rehire them back, if any? And also there is a matter of, you know, and this is very confidential, that, you know, a couple of these employees were working, you know, with documents lent from someone else. So he's asking about the rehiring and probably the scrutiny of workers that work with someone else's documents.
Sure. First, if they laid those employees off from February 15th to later, then they should hire them back. And then the loan will cover those people. That's my first answer.
So could you repeat, because it was cut off there for a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. So for the first answer, if those employees were laid off after February 15th, then they can hire them back and the payroll protection loan will pay them.
Okay, Lima, tú, si ustedes despidieron los empleados después del 15 de febrero, los pueden recontratar y el préstamo pagaría por ellos.
Okay. Gracias.
But if they can't, then the payroll will only be for the employees that they have had during that period.
Y en el dado caso que no pueda, ¿verdad? Va a ser entonces para los empleados que tenga durante ese periodo. And you know, Dan Valdez, I think, is probably the accountant for that mission, and he's saying that they are contractors in the notes.
Okay, so that's important, and I'll just say that more clearly. This only applies for people who are employees. That means that they're on the payroll of the church, not if they're independent contractors.
Sí, gracias por la aclaratoria, ¿verdad? Porque este préstamo aplica solamente a los que son considerados empleados de la institución y no a las personas que son contratistas independientes. ¿Hay otra pregunta? Is there any other question?
I'll say, as for papers, that's a different question. There's always a risk of scrutiny from the federal government right now about employment. So I don't want to talk about that. But I think if we have people that are otherwise on the payroll, and let's not even ask immigration questions. If they're on the payroll, then we'll proceed that way. But if they're independent contractors, they don't worry about it in our.
Sí, lo que Jeff dice, ¿verdad? Es que aquí, en principio, no podemos hablar de cuestiones migratorias, pero el supuesto aquí, ¿verdad? Nunca sabemos cuánto el gobierno va a estar revisando algo. Pero si esas personas ya están como empleados, el supuesto es que pueden continuar como empleados. Eso es lo que él recomienda.
Let me talk about loan number 2.
Vamos a hablar del préstamo número 2.
So this loan is called Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL.
Este es un préstamo que se llama Préstamo por Desastres de Daños Económicos.
But I'll talk about EIDL, or Loan 2. This is a different category of loan, and it covers different things, and it's not forgivable.
Y lo importante de este préstamo número 2 es que este préstamo número 2 cubre otro tipo de cosas que no cubre el préstamo número 1, y también que este tipo de préstamo no lo van a perdonar.
Its purpose is to cover operating expenses when there has been a loss of income because of the disaster.
El propósito de este préstamo es cubrir gastos operativos que han sido resultado de un desastre que hemos sufrido, como el caso que estamos pasando ahora.
So if during the slowdown because of the coronavirus, contributions or pledges or tithes or other people's rent is down, then this loan can help cover that for operating expenses.
Sí, entonces por lo menos si nosotros en este periodo del coronavirus, donde recibimos menos contribuciones de los congregantes por lo menos, o si hacíamos rentas y no podemos percibir las rentas por la situación que tenemos, es el tipo de pérdidas que pueden ser cubiertas bajo este préstamo. Pérdidas por cosas que hemos perdido a causa del virus corona.
So when there's an application, the church will show what their economic injury is, what the loss is because of the disaster. So if donations go down, you'll need to show how much donations go down to get a loan from the government for that amount.
Lo importante aquí, ¿verdad? Es que uno tiene que demostrar cuando hace la aplicación de que ha sufrido pérdidas y documentar las pérdidas que ha sufrido. Si por lo menos usted puede demostrar que ha recibido menos contribuciones de los congregantes debido a la situación del virus corona, entonces...
Sorry.
So Jeff, just to follow up on this, because we have a meeting with some of this clergy on Tuesday. Tenemos una junta con ustedes y platicamos algunas de estas cosas, and some of them talk about like the loss of rent, like if they rent church space or the loss associated with rental for social events. So, for example, there was someone that had already booked the quinceañera during this time. So, what do they do? So, le hice la pregunta a Jeff que platicamos en la junta del martes, donde algunos de ustedes preguntaron, ¿verdad? ¿Qué pasa si perdemos las rentas? ¿O qué pasa si yo tenía una quinceañera que estaba rentando en esta época?
That's what this loan covers. So if there is a loss of income because of rent or the quinceañera or someone who rents space on the church grounds, this can cover that. But then I have a big qualification. It is a loan. It's not a grant. So the church does have to pay it back over time.
Sí, so la respuesta de Jeff es que precisamente es el tipo de cosas que están cubiertas bajo este préstamo, ¿verdad? Si alguien que renta no puede pagar o si la quinceañera se tuvo que cancelar y no recibimos el ingreso, es precisamente esto es lo que el préstamo cubre. La aclaratoria es, ¿verdad?, que como es préstamo, este se tiene que pagar de vuelta. You're mute.
Sorry, I muted myself to cough and then I turned myself off. Padre Juan looks like he has a question.
Let me see. Padre Juan, Melissa, could you unmute
I will
him?
unmute you. Yeah.
I
I'll
don't,
unmute you.
I don't see the question here.
Why is it not unmuting? Juan, try.
There we go. Okay.
Ya está. So,
This second kind of loan, do we do that directly, missions, or do we go through a diocese for that?
If you're a mission, the diocese is going to do one or two big loans for all of the missions. So you don't have to apply yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Juan, ¿lo puedes decir en español para que otros?
Claro, si somos misiones, este segundo tipo de préstamo, ¿lo hacemos nosotros o lo hace la diócesis?
Y la respuesta es, ¿verdad?, que la diócesis va a hacerlo, ¿verdad? Okay. So Jeff, just to be clear on that, because it is, as you said, they are related, but they are different loans. So for this second type of loan, if a mission wants to apply for that, they also have to work with the diocese to go through that process, true? Ok, so sí, entonces la confirmación es esa, ¿verdad? Que si alguno de nosotros está pensando en pedir un préstamo del tipo 2, también tenemos que trabajar con la diócesis.
That loan can be up to $2 million, but it has a payoff period of something like 40 years at 2.5%.
Sí, y un préstamo de hasta $2 millones y tenemos hasta 40 años para pagarla, con una tasa de interés aproximadamente de 2.5%.
We're not going to get $2 million loans. No one is.
Jeff dice que no vamos a agarrar préstamos tan grandes. Is it only 2 million or 200 million?
Just two.
So no, 2 millones nomás. Okay. Okay.
So those are that they can be. A church can get both loans, but can't use it for the same things. So and if there's a choice, we should get the first loan that can be forgiven, not the second loan that can't.
Y lo otro, ¿verdad? Es que el dinero se puede aplicar por los dos préstamos, ¿verdad? Pero el dinero no se puede usar para las mismas cosas, ¿verdad? Y es por eso que la recomendación es que tratemos de cubrir todo lo que podamos con el préstamo número 1 y evitar agarrar un préstamo número 2 que vamos a tener que pagarlo después. There is a question here, yeah.
Sure,
from Sandra Martinez.
Sandra, there's not a deadline yet. I'm sorry, Antonio.
So la pregunta de Sandra es, ¿verdad? Que ¿cuándo es la fecha límite para aplicar por el préstamo número 1? Y por ahora Jeff dice que no hay una fecha límite establecida. But if you are a mission, we better work with the diocese within the next few hours, ¿verdad? Pero si somos una misión, hay que trabajar con la diócesis lo más rápido posible.
There's not a deadline, but the loan number 1, the application is open on Friday, April 3rd. The loan number 2 is already open.
Sino, aunque no hay una fecha límite para aplicar, lo importante de saber es que para el préstamo número 1, las aplicaciones se abren a partir de este viernes. Para el préstamo número 2, ya están abiertas las aplicaciones.
It is important, especially for loan number 1 that covers compensation for employees, that we keep very good records. Because if we don't keep good records about the number of employees and their compensation, the forgiveness will not be available.
Es bastante importante que para el préstamo número 1 guardemos registros bien detallados del número de empleados y cuánto se le está pagando, porque cuando llegue el momento de someter toda esta información, eso va a determinar si nos perdonan o no la deuda. Entonces es importante que guardemos registros.
Any more questions about loans? I think I've covered the basics.
Jeff, you want to talk about the 10,000 advance?
Oh, thank you, Antonio. Yes. For loan number 2, there is also a program for a $10,000 grant in advance on that loan.
Sí, para el préstamo número 2 hay un avance de $10,000 que pueden darlo como una beca. Is that a grant?
Grant.
So you don't have to pay the 10,000?
Right.
Ok, entonces para el préstamo número 2 hay un avance de $10,000 que es una subvención o beca y ese no tiene que pagarse.
So the church would apply for the second loan, the EIDL loan from the Small Business Administration, and also request the $10,000 advance.
Sí, entonces la iglesia tiene que aplicar a la Administración de Pequeños Negocios Federal por este tipo de préstamo número 2 y también pedirle que le dé el avance de $10,000, que es, de nuevo, como dijimos, no es un préstamo, ese avance es una beca o una subvención.
And that is a loan that is forgiven, so it's like a grant. And if someone gets the first loan for payroll protection and gets the $10,000 grant, the $10,000 grant gets combined with the forgiveness from the first loan. That's how they relate.
Y la forma en que van a usarlo para el gobierno es que si alguien agarra el préstamo número 1 y también agarra el préstamo número 2, los $10,000 del préstamo número 2 se van a combinar con el préstamo número 1 y eso es lo que el gobierno va a perdonar y no hay que pagarlo. Sí tenemos la documentación.
So now two more technical tax issues that might be interesting.
Lleva a compartir dos detalles técnicos que son interesantes que sepamos también.
First is if a church does not get the loans, it can defer up to 50% of its payroll taxes to another date, which allows it to keep more money on hand now instead of going into more debt.
Otro programa que existe, ¿verdad? Es que en el dado caso que la iglesia o la misión no aplique por ninguno de los préstamos, número 1, número 2, hay un incentivo que nos va a permitir pagar solamente 50% de los impuestos de la nómina y pagarlo más tarde, ¿verdad? Se va a diferir el pago del 50% de los impuestos de la nómina para más tarde y la idea de eso es que nos quede más dinero para poder operar, ¿verdad? Pero if I'm clear, Jeff, to qualify for that, you cannot ask the loans, right?
Right, because if you get the loans, you have to pay all the taxes.
Sí, porque si para calificar para el seguimiento de la nómina, no podemos pedir uno de los préstamos 1 y 2, porque si pedimos los préstamos 1 y 2, la expectativa del gobierno es que también se paguen los gastos de nómina, ¿verdad? Esto es en el caso que usted decida no aplicar por ninguno.
Now, my last point is about contributions. The new bill from Congress lifts the limits on what donors can give to nonprofits or what people can give to church for tax purposes.
La segunda parte, el detalle que Jeff quiere compartir con nosotros también es que la ley que aprobó el Congreso también aumentó el límite de las contribuciones que las personas pueden hacer a nuestras organizaciones sin fines de lucro.
So if there are people or corporations, people or companies who want to donate to churches, they can donate more and get a bigger tax advantage during this tax year because of the disease, because of the pandemic.
Sí, lo que eso significa es que si hay algún individuo u organización también que quiere darnos más contribuciones, ¿verdad? O que nosotros queremos pedirle más contribuciones, hay un beneficio extra este año debido a la pandemia, donde ellos van a recibir un beneficio impuesto más alto que lo que reciben usualmente.
So Bishop Bruce. Melissa, I think you need to let her off.
I am. You have to let me do it. No, I can't. There you go.
Quiero compartir otra vez lo que yo estaba compartiendo ayer y yo voy a usar inglés y Antonio va a traducir para mí porque I want to make sure I get this right. Church Pension Group will forgive 2 months or may forgive 2 months of clergy pension assessment.
Sí, lo que la obispa quiere recalcar fue lo que nos dijo en la junta ayer, de que el grupo de pensiones de la iglesia puede, en teoría, perdonar 2 meses de los pagos que hacemos mensualmente a la contribución de nuestras pensiones como clérigos.
But you have to show hardship and you cannot have any kind of endowment.
Y para poder hacerlo, ¿verdad? Hay 2 condiciones que ellos están pidiendo. Una es que tenemos que demostrar que estamos pasando por momentos muy difíciles financieramente, y lo otro es que no podemos tener un fondo de endowment donde nosotros nos podamos cubrir las cosas financieras. Entonces, esos 2 requisitos los piden ellos.
All of the missions I can see on this call are already on the list to try to receive it. It's not guaranteed.
Sí, y el obispo confirma, ¿verdad?, que todas las misiones que estamos aquí en esta llamada ya estamos incluidas en la petición que se va a hacer a través de la diócesis. Y aunque no se garantiza que lo van a aprobar, ¿verdad?, la diócesis va a hacer la aplicación para nosotros. So, is the diocese going to do the applications for the missions?
They have to. We have to.
Sí, hay que hacerlo por la diócesis y la diócesis lo va a hacer.
And if you're a parish and you can show hardship and you do not have an endowment, you need to send me your financials now, like tonight, so that I can put the clergy, it's only for clergy, the clergy on the list.
Y si alguno de ustedes es una parroquia, no una misión, y cree que puede mostrar que tiene problemas financieros fuertes y que no tiene un fondo de regalo financiero que puede utilizar para esto, que por favor contacte a la obispa para que la obispa le ayude con el proceso de aplicación.
Also, for a parish or a mission, church pension group, if you don't get the 2 months free, they will allow you to defer payments to your clergy pension assessment, your health care, your denominational trust, for up to 3 months without penalty.
Lo otro, ¿verdad?, es que en dado caso que el fondo de pensiones no apruebe esta petición de no pagar las contribuciones para la pensión por 2 meses, la otra opción que ellos están ofreciendo es diferir por 3 meses los pagos que vamos a hacer por pensión o por seguro de salud sin ningún tipo de penalidad, ¿verdad? Que esa es otra opción que se puede hacer.
And if your building is covered under church insurance, not Guide 1, not Church Mutual, but church insurance, they will also defer up to 3 months, no penalty. But you're going to have to, those you're going to have to all pay back, the health care, the pension, and the property. Eventually you're going to have to pay it back, but without penalty.
Y lo otro, ¿verdad?, es que también está ofreciendo ese diferimiento de 3 meses para el seguro sobre la propiedad. si tienen seguro la propiedad con ese grupo que se llama Church Insurance directamente, eso lo pueden diferir por 3 meses sin penalidad. Entonces, el pago de la pensión mensual, el pago del seguro de salud y el pago del seguro de propiedad se pueden diferir por 3 meses. Hay que pagarlo después, pero eso puede ayudar a tener un poquito más de dinero a la mano. Listo.
Any questions?
¿Alguna otras preguntas?
Padre Limatu.
Lima,
Cuando,
¿tú?
sí, cuando dicen que si una misión tiene un fondo, ¿a qué se refiere eso específicamente? O sea, si tiene una cantidad de reserva en el banco y utilizarlo para hacer los pagos que se tengan o cómo.
Yeah, so the question is about, what is an endowment, right? And whether it is cash at the bank or it's money that is set aside. Obispa. I think you're right.
Padre Limatu, no hay problema. Usted está en la lista.
So you are in the list. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
¿Alguna otra pregunta? Any other question?
Okay, I'm happy to answer questions. If people would like to email me too, I'll try, or we'll try to find out the answer. I'm going to put my email here in case people want to reach out. And you can also, Melissa or someone else from the diocese sent out my memo translated into Spanish, which we've already mentioned. And it has a lot of these details in it already.
Sí, entonces Jeff acaba de poner ahí en la ventanita de chat su dirección de correo electrónico, por si alguno de ustedes quiere contactarle para alguna pregunta. Y él también nos invita a que revisemos todos los detalles, los detalles que están en el memo que se mandó ayer, que son mucho más de lo que pudimos hablar hoy.
Great. All right. Do you think we're ready to pray?
Sandra asked, recorded. It is, yes.
Yes.
Sí, esta sesión está grabada y después se puede compartir.
All right. Bishop Taylor, would you pray for us?
Por favor, una oración por Antonio. De Antonio.
Oh. You could pray for me, that's great. Oh, Dios de amor, tú nos amas tanto que siempre nos demuestras que no estamos solos. Nos muestras luz, nos das esperanza y eso nos ayuda a seguir para adelante. Te damos gracias, Dios, por todas las personas que han trabajado tan fuerte. We thank you for all the people who have worked so hard to get us to this point, para llegar a este punto. For everyone in the diocese, I worked tireless hours to get us to this point. Por toda la gente en la diócesis que ha trabajado. And for our congregations, por nuestras congregaciones, and for our staff and our clergy who are going through this challenging time, por nuestras personas que trabajan en la iglesia, el personal clérigo. Continue to guard us, continue to protect us, síguenos cuidándonos, síguenos protegiendo. And we ask all of this because we know that you're hearing us. Y te pedimos todo esto porque sabemos que nos estás escuchando. In the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ, en el nombre de tu Hijo, nuestro Salvador Jesucristo. Amén.
Amen.